Spoilers for Strictly Ballroom. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Script Department. Today I am joined by, wait for it, 3-time Pan-Pacific Grand Prix Amateur 5 Dance Latin American champion, Fiona Giorgio Hunt.
Yay! Happy to be here. Very nice.
In the first entry of our Baz Luhrmann Retrospective, yes, we are going all the way back to the beginning of Luhrmann's career with Strictly Ballroom, written by Craig Pearce. Before we get into that, if you haven't already, do check out our website, scriptdepartment.net, for everything that our global network of screenwriters gets up to. Follow us on social media. Links are in the description. And you can buy us a coffee as well. Fiona, you're a fan of espressos, aren't you? Italian coffee?
I sure am. Anything Italian coffee, I'm sold.
Yeah. So you can do that. Links are in the description. And yeah, Fiona, Strictly Ballroom. I love this film. I believe you're a fan of it too.
Me too. This is one of my go-to films when life gets a bit tough and you need a little bit of coddling from movie land. This is my go-to. Absolutely love it. And how about you? When did you fall in love with this film?
So I have a bit of a funny story with this. So when I went to a pretty tough secondary school where you do in Ireland you do the junior certificate, which is like your kind of exams you do when you're like 13, 14, maybe 14, 15, and then you do your final exams, your leaving certificate then before you head out to university or whatever. And for this kind of tells you the class I was in. For our junior, we had the chance to study I think Romeo and Juliet, and we studied American History X. Our teacher thought that would be a much more appropriate thing to educate us about, the real world and so on. A weird film to show a bunch of 15-year-old kids. Yeah. Pretty violent movie to show a bunch of 15-year-old kids. But, it, I think hopefully made us better people.
Or something.
Or something, anyway. And then for our leaving certificate, we were convinced we were going to be watching like Saving Private Ryan, because there was a Saving Private Ryan poster, and the teacher had in the English room had a big kind of collector's edition of the VHS for Saving Private Ryan, and so we were all really excited. And she was also the history teacher, so we were like, yes, this would be a great movie. And then she brings out Strictly Ballroom, and all of our faces just kind of dropped a little bit, and we thought, Strictly what?
Ballroom dancing?
And then we thought, all right, well, we'll go with it. And then she pops it on, and then the red curtain,
yes, the red curtain,
which we'll talk about red curtain cinema, but the red curtain appears, and and then it's the ballroom music, and I'm like, what is this film? And every one of us, there's this moment in The Simpsons where, so Bart and Lisa, they convince Homer to bring them to Itchy and Scratchy Land,
right?
And they're like, and they're like, can we go? And then they're like, ask your mother. He's like, ask your mother, and they think that's a win.
Right.
And they're like, yay. And they go right to her and they say, can we go to Scratchy Land? And then she says, no, we're going to the bird sanctuary. I've got it all planned out. And then it cuts to their faces, and it's like this elongated, sour look on their face. Anyway, I just imagine that's what everyone in the class looked like.
I'm sure they did, expecting
But
Private
the thing
Ryan.
is, I know, yeah. But the thing is, I think we all secretly loved the film. Because every time she would say, okay, we're going to do a rewatch of Strictly Ballroom now to prepare, because you'd have to prepare an essay about it and all that. I think everyone would go, oh no, really? But because you couldn't really admit it to everybody that you liked the film.
Of course.
So that is my long-winded answer of when we came to Strictly Ballroom. And every time she would say, we're going to watch it, I'd be like, yes, we're going to watch Strictly Ballroom. And and I bought it on DVD as soon as it came out. I saw it on DVD one day once it came out, and I was like, okay, I'm having that.
Yeah,
it is. I love the film. I really do. And I've seen it so many times because we had to study it for school. So we were watching it like every fortnight. But this was my first time coming to it in a few years, actually.
I think it's pretty good, though, that you watched it at school and liked it at school, but then it is still something that you've come back to, because often it's the case that no matter how good it might be, school tends to scar you with texts and movies and stuff, and sometimes you're like, oh god, it reminds me of school. But that's really good that you still really like it after all this time. I've never
thought about it like that, actually, that it should be something that I'm just like, I don't ever want to touch this film again. But I went into like the HMV or whatever it was in Cork looking for something. Maybe it was maybe it was Saving Private Ryan or something. And I just remember seeing that and just saying, yeah, I'm having this instead. Like I do remember going in with a plan to buy something and then coming out with Strictly Ballroom instead. Like I was very excited to watch it again. And I don't think I've ever shown it to somebody who hasn't come away going, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that, because I've had a really slightly different experience over here in the UK, because, you know, obviously being Australian, it's an iconic Australian movie that you kind of grow up with and everybody knows it. And there are so many references in that movie that remind me of my childhood and remind me of where I lived in Australia, in Sydney, and all sorts of great things. Like it's a touchstone for me about my childhood, my heritage, as much as anything. But coming over here, I was kind of surprised with two things to the UK. That I was surprised that it seems to pop up as a bit of a Christmas film, which surprises me because that doesn't happen in Oz at all. So I noticed that over the last few Christmases, it tends to sort of pop up as kind of Christmas, not promoted as a Christmas movie, but it's around that time. And then I have found that some of the people that I've showed it to have just kind of blanked it a bit and gone, so I kind of think you either really get it and you really connect with it, and if you don't, you just don't. I sort of feel it's a little bit like that. So it's been a little bit disappointing showing it to some friends over here and going, oh my God, this movie's so amazing, and they're like, okay, well, yeah, it was okay. So yeah, so I don't know. I didn't know whether that's a cultural thing or I don't know. But yeah.
And what was your first experience watching it? I mean, it obviously is a huge. So I mean, this started as a play for Luhrmann.
Yes.
And then he turned into a movie.
Yes.
And apparently the Australian finance, the film board
Film
or whoever,
Australia.
Film Australia.
Yeah, it was Film
apparently
Australia.
they hated it, apparently. Like I think the first screening, they really didn't like it.
Yeah.
That was from my research. And but then it just took again, from what I read, it took Australia by storm. I mean,
yeah, it definitely did. It was. I think Luhrmann went to to the National Institute of Dramatic Art, NIDA, which is in Australia. That's the kind of preeminent acting school, and I think it was something he developed with some of his friends there. And then he went to, and I think it was a few years later, it got shown at the Sydney Theatre Company, which again is a preeminent theatre company, or one of the two really in Australia. So, and then I think it got picked up by Film Australia. And I think what's really interesting is that I don't remember any kind of negative press about it. All I remember is when it came out, it was just, this film is amazing. But I wonder whether, retrospectively, if there was any reluctance to it in the first instance, particularly at feature film level funding, is because maybe there might be a little bit of cultural cringe behind it, because some of the characterization is really is quintessentially suburban Australia. and I don't know whether maybe in the first instance there was a bit of like, do we really want to put that out as our sort of flagship, because there's definitely, I mean, I could talk about Australian cultural cringe for ages, but certainly historically, but it may be that, I don't know, but certainly from an audience point of view, once it was out, everybody loved it, I think. Which is lovely.
And that was your experience when you first saw it? You just gelled with it, or?
I definitely did. I just I remember seeing it at the movies when it came out, and what I liked about it was there was a few things which I think if you are not an Aussie, you might not resonate with so much. Like little things like the scene, You're Ready scene, where they're dancing on the top of the shop of Fran's shop, and they've got the Coke sign in the background. And in Sydney, in Australia, the Coke sign, that Coca-Cola sign, is actually, there is a big sign in the King's Cross, which is the red light district, and that is an icon for Sydney-siders and Australians. So to bring that little landmark into the top floor of that building was really lovely. Like for us, we're like, oh, that's really nice. And then equally, it's that particular scene was filmed in a place called Petersham, which is in the inner west of Sydney, which is just near where I used to live, actually. And it's like the heartland of migrant Sydney, and certainly was in the 70s and 80s. And so what's lovely about it was that Fran's Spanish family that lived there it's so perfectly placed. And so when you see that family and you see them there, and I know from being there that that's absolutely right. So it really resonates. So I loved those things about it, and even seeing it on the big screen was like, oh yeah, this is my experience. And even the really cheesy characterization and those caricatured, what I would call suburban Australian characters, which are a bit cringy, um, are also really heartwarming, because when you see them on the big screen and when you see that they've got an international audience, you go, it's cultures like to see themselves. It's representation, isn't it? Even if it's not always, if it's a bit humorous, so I think.
Yeah.
So, and I definitely resonated with that right from the start. So it's it feels like it's me. That movie feels home for me in a way, which is really interesting when you see films that have that really deep cultural connection with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of and it's just stayed with me.
I'm glad you talked about the Coca-Cola sign. I'm addicted to Coca-Cola, and so
Me
I just
too.
but I'm also like, I mean, it's dangerously addictive. But the Coca-Cola iconography, I think, is such a cinematic thing as well. Like, there's something about, I don't know what it is. There's certain brands that just align with cinema so perfectly.
True.
And maybe it's the color schemes and the way they're used sometimes, or maybe it's just, they've just been used well in certain moments, and it just feels like there's just this inherent kind of connection.
Yeah.
But I always remember that just standing out and just sticking out and being one of those famous just stills from cinema for so long. Like, for me, when I think about iconic movie, or for me, my personal favorite frames of cinema, my absolute most favorite frame of cinema is in The Godfather, when they're parked on the country road and you can see the Statue of Liberty in the distance, and I think one guy's going to the toilet and the other guy shoots the man in the back of the head or whatever, and it's just this old car, and the color of the car kind of it's almost like it just looks like a painting. It's just this wonderful frame that has that kind of American identity embedded into it as well. And for me, another one next to that would be them dancing on the roof with the Coca-Cola. I just think it's but it's funny that I've always just looked at it as blatant product placement, because this is a guy who needed money for his first film. That's how I've always looked at that. But then it's so interesting that you describe it then as this is a landmark that he's embedded into his world.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the kind of the Spanish community as well. There, because I mean, being a kid in Ireland, you're not thinking about the cultures that live in Sydney, Australia, or the communities that reside there. And I thought, this is a film that didn't need to do that. This is a film that could have just said, this is just a bunch of quintessential cliche people from this dance community, and they're just all white Australians, whatever. And I mean, I know the Spanish community are Australian as well, but it could have just gone down that road of, we're not even going to try and diversify the characters in this film.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many Irish films do you see where it's just you'd never guess anybody ever came to Ireland?
That's right. Yeah.
And it does feel like sometimes America is the only place where you will find that kind of mix in big movies.
Yeah. It's a really good point, actually.
And I just thought it was so kind of it felt so natural.
Yeah.
And it also just felt so normalized, which it should.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the things.
But just so unique as well. Just so unique as well. Like I don't get enough films where, or at least back in the early 90s, where like this is a landmark Australian film.
Yeah.
That is as much about other communities integrating into life in Australia.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's so brilliant. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No, you're right. No, and I love the fact that they filmed it in, that particular scene in Petersham, which is actually, it's in the corner. I know exactly where it is. Corner of Crystal Street and Parramatta Road, a very gritty, dirty, not nice part of Sydney. And that they chose to really just, I mean, look, let's be honest, it's probably also a budgetary issue because, first film and all that. But they chose to really embrace that community, which I thought was lovely. But equally, and linking it back to the script writing thing, what I also really liked about it was that as a Spanish family, Fran represents, and the dancing from the Spanish family represents a freedom. It's all about freedom and expressiveness, whereas the kind of Anglo-based, Pan Pacific Grand Prix five dance Latin American Championship is all about conformity, and it's about not being free and conforming. And even like the thing that I loved was that the opening line of the script is the film is go number 100, which is Scott's and his dance partner's number. So it's not go Scott, it's go number. He's a number, right? He's got to conform to the particular dance steps of the particular competition, and it's all about conformity. And so I love the fact that they use that family and that culture as a way to give a contrast to the kind of conformity of which the world that they'd created for him, which was lovely.
There's a wonderful scene in it where he's gone to the barbecue or the dinner or they're having a little kind of party outside.
Yeah.
And they're kind of laughing at him because he thinks he knows how to do this. He's like, I know how to do this. Was it the Paso Doble? And he's like, I know how to do this. And they show him doing it. And it's like, okay, that, like, I don't know how to dance. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, that looks all right. And then the father steps in. Fran's father steps in. And it is like night and day in comparison. It is the most amazing dancing.
Absolutely.
I get chills watching it. That close up of the shoes, the wood on wood, the rhythm, the banging, the everything. It is
absolutely.
It is just Baz Luhrmann could direct an Avengers action movie based on how well he does that. Just the beauty of that moment. It's so
absolutely.
There's fire in that.
Oh my god. Absolutely. Also helped by the fact that it's Antonio Varga, who is, I think he's probably Australia's best known flamenco dancer, unbelievably talented.
Yeah.
Paul Mercurio is brilliant as well. But in terms of, that his shtick, and you're like, oh my God, this man is, and then, the way it was shot and just, it was such a beautiful contrast. And it still gives me goosebumps when I see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The man is like yes. Sorry.
No, I was going to say he can dance. Paul Mercurio can dance like no one's business. But he is shamed by Fran's father in that. I didn't know he had I assumed a lot of them have dancing backgrounds, but I don't know if they're professional dancers or just it's part of their acting resume. He, it is incredible. And I heard somebody say, I think it was Aaron Sorkin said that David Fincher can direct typing in The Social Network like it's a Fast and Furious car chase. And I do feel that that Baz Luhrmann could direct any movie just from the way he directs that dancing scene. It is not the dancers. I mean, the dancers are doing that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's Paul Mercurio selling you on a lot of the dancing in those other scenes.
Yeah.
But I think Baz Luhrmann's selling you on the difference.
Yes.
Between just the way he films it, it's so wonderful.
It is. And it's little things like the shoes and the way his shoulders went back and the kind of the way his sort of stance changes and the look on his face. And it's all those things that, I don't know anything about Spanish dancing, but I know what I see when I see that difference. And you go, oh my God, that's just so powerful.
But I don't know either, but I trust that Baz knows.
Yes, exactly.
Because only you would have to know this stuff in order to know what to capture to create those differences.
That's true.
I fully believe that the father is the expert here. And not just because the story demands it, but I could have it on mute and I would know. And I love that he's goading the bull. Like he takes his jacket off and it becomes a red cloth. There's red lining on the inside, which I think is probably intentional for that narrative, but for bullfighters and so on. But he takes off the jacket and then it's a red lining and he's using it to goad Scott, the bull. And it's this wonderful back and forth. And I'm like, he's unleashing the fury, there's nothing about this film to chance. Nothing about this is just we're lingering on a moment that's nice, or we discovered something and we just decided to go. We talked about the Deer Hunter, and 2 hours of that is a great story, but there's an hour of that is very much lingering on things that the director finds curious.
Right.
Terrence Malick is famous for that, and it can make for great films.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but there is nothing about Baz Luhrmann that is left to chance. Everything is perfectly. Every beat is perfectly thought through.
Yeah.
And
it feels that way, and it feels like all the little details around the, just the expressions of these beautifully caricatured characters that are around the kind of main characters, and just all the little tiny details. And I mean, I know, we focus on the script and not, a little less on the actual filmmaking side, but the shots, like the close-up shots of, the really like intense close-ups that are on that angle that you're almost looking up the character's nose of like Barry Fife, and he's a sweaty kind of, red-faced man, and it's just brilliant. It just brings those characters to life so brilliantly. It's it just adds such level of depth to the experience of lifts the script. So
absolutely. I want to talk about red curtain cinema as a concept, because this is Baz Luhrmann's kind of was for a long time his stamp. I think he stop doing that. I mean, obviously a lot of his films, Great Gatsby and so on, and I haven't seen Elvis yet, but I saw your review on it, and I get the feeling stylistically his films are all very connected, but do you think he's given up on red curtain cinema or was it really just for Moulin Rouge, Romeo and Juliet, and Strictly?
I think so. You tend to hear about it as the red curtain trilogy, don't you? I think it's I think it probably has, and because the other thing is, and I can't remember this really well, but I did read about, again, that reference to the Coke sign, that in Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge, he does a similar thing, but it's not Coke, it's a French word, and I should have checked this before we did this conversation, but he uses that same mechanic in a different way in those films as well. So I think there's a couple of thematics that he sort of pulls through, if you like. But it doesn't seem like it's continued after.
I knew that he literally uses a red curtain to open those films. But with or without the red curtain, his style of filmmaking is pretty consistent, and and I did wonder, is his philosophy around that still going, or did he kind of change direction really after? I mean, we'll get through it, I guess, once we cover those other films. But
I do feel like Elvis was a bit of a departure, and it may be just me. I did talk a little bit about it with Marcus in our review, but I did feel that I felt there was quite a distinct jump between The Great Gatsby and Elvis, in terms of just and I talked about I guess my challenge sometimes with Luhrmann is that I feel that occasionally the spectacle overtakes the script, the emotional engagement, because you're seeing a spectacle roll out in front of you rather than feeling immersed in a story and connecting with the characters. And certainly I felt like that with Gatsby. Strictly Ballroom is its own thing. I think it sits quite apart from all of the others from that point of view. It's just a whole different beast in that way. But I really felt, and I'd be really interested to hear what your thoughts are on Elvis, because I felt it was quite a jump, and much more about that sort of fictional narrative stuff than the kind of more showy stuff, and which I think has worked well for him, and I certainly think it made Elvis a really successful film, and I know some people who are lesser fans of Luhrmann because of the spectacle approach, and really liked Elvis. So that's really interesting.
I'd be very interested to see what kind of resistance he gets from studio executives, because you know what you're getting, like what you're bringing on when you get Baz Luhrmann in, or when Baz Luhrmann pitches a movie. But I wonder how. Probably the same with Christopher Nolan as well, where it's like, we really want to work with this person, but we also need to make sure that the film is as accessible to the widest audience possible. And I don't think his films at all are inaccessible, but I think studio executives will fear they are, something. And I think that's probably a concern that that has probably come up every now and again with Baz Luhrmann's films. But the thing I found interesting about his concept around red curtain cinema, from what I read, was and I downloaded a kind of a PDF that was like a Strictly Ballroom kind of analysis pack for schools, and I firmly believe my school teacher had been using that because it was all the points that we'd been taught in school. But one of the points was about red curtain, and it was the idea that Baz Luhrmann wanted to create a style, I'm paraphrasing here, where and I agree with this kind of in many ways, where it's audiences know they are watching a film, so why are we trying to convince them it's real? Let's just go full on stylistic and let's just go full on fairy tale kind of mode in it.
Yeah.
And I've always said, when I used to teach video game design, we used to talk about immersiveness, which is the buzzword every gamer uses and critics use when they're talking about whether or not a game is good. And the idea is that immersiveness is a kind of a fallacy, really, because it's not like you're suddenly, when you're driving a Formula 1 car in a video game, that you suddenly think you've just crashed your car. You're in a video game, otherwise you'd be traumatized. And so, and I do completely understand his logic with red curtain cinema. That idea that, we know we're watching a movie. Why are we trying to make this stuff as real as possible? Every story is different, of course, but I think, I love that you can kind of set your watch to the kind of films he'll make. Because of that, because you can't tackle any film with that philosophy.
I guess so. I guess for me, I think the challenge around it is, and I think again, we're talking about Strictly Ballroom, not his other films, but if you look at The Great Gatsby, and if you look at the original Great Gatsby, it's the Luhrmann one is, in my opinion, not a patch on the original, because that film, that story, that original F. Scott Fitzgerald tale that's behind it it's a story about a man, and it's a really moving story about a man who's messed up and what have you, but it's the emotion is really important in that, the connection with that character is really important, and I just felt that the Gatsby thing was so way off the mark. A terrific experience, but did I feel anything? Not at all. Whereas if I think about the Robert Redford, Mia Farrow one, my God, that was an extraordinary film.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to talking about Gatsby with you. We might do that next time. Maybe we'll do them out of order, because so that we're not.
Let me get it out of my system.
I feel like we go from a really great film here to maybe a not so great.
Not so good. Anyway, enough about Gatsby.
But so I think I think what's really great, and the reason I brought up Red Curtain is, you get the rules of this type of cinema right from the beginning. I don't know if it's the prologue or that opening sequence, which is kind of mockumentary / the dance competition and so on. It is, you learn everything you need to learn. You know everything there is to know. You don't have to know the rules of Strictly Ballroom. You just know they're not the rules that Barry Fife wants you to follow.
That's right.
It is masterful screenwriting in the sense that he's concentrating on the stuff you need to know. This isn't a lesson. You will not learn how to be a great dancer from watching this film. The mistake would be to try and educate people on dancing. Instead, it's, I'm going to educate you on this world that they live in.
Yeah.
And it does such a great job of that. And it's almost like a true crime documentary that they've created at the beginning. So some of the stuff I picked up on. So first of all, there's a lot of brainwashing and gaslighting going on. What do you think of the moves?
Yes.
What do you think of the steps?
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, but what do you think of them?
Yeah.
I told you, I don't know. And it's like, I've been watching Westworld again recently.
Oh, right.
I'm like, wow, this is Westworld. This is, have you ever thought about what's outside the boundaries of this town?
Yeah.
I don't know, really. Maybe we should go, and it's, and there's all this repetition of dialogue that characters are saying to try and again really reinforce. And the mother says this thing. It's I'm gonna bring up the character's name. It is Liz, right? His dance partner. And she's like, she's totally shocked that they had to do this dance. And she says, he forced me into it.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's crying, and it's like this really kind of troubling line, actually. Like, he forced me into it.
Yeah.
And then you have the mother saying, "Did I fail him as a mother?"
Yeah. Yeah.
in front of Barry Fife. That's the line. Did I fail him as a mother?
Yeah.
She starts sobbing, and then she says, in front of Barry Fife. And it's almost like Barry Fife is God.
Definitely. In this world, Barry Fife is
and he is the
definitely
judge
God.
as well. He's presented as a judge. Like the camera looks up at the judge with the gavel in courtroom dramas. And it's all completely aligned as if he has committed a mortal sin.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and everything is in relation to what Barry Fife thinks. And, there's that great moment where, towards the end where Scott is in the middle of breaking the rules on the dance floor, and his brother, is it his brother? With his dance partner grabs Barry and says, could we just show you the bogo pogo? And, and it's it's a terrible moment because Barry then gets into all these ridiculously lewd dance moves with his girlfriend. But everything that character it cannot function without the approval of Barry Fife. Everything is about, and I think that the whole world is about, we can't function unless we are conforming to the rules that Barry Fife has set us, which is it's kind of fascinating that he is godlike in a way, as ridiculous as he is.
And I think it's so I just love the opening. I love the mother does all the work.
She does. Yeah.
And to be the women of this show do all the work in selling you on how heinous the crime is that he broke the dance rules, because they behave as though they were victims in some way, or that they will forever be traumatized by what they went through. At the hands of that heinous Scott Hastings,
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. The absurdity of it. And it's so funny, and it's so. But there is language there that is, I don't think, he forced me into it.
Yeah.
And have I failed him as a mother? And she's really bawling her eyes. Like, this is a true crime.
I hadn't thought of it. But you're absolutely right.
It's so brilliant done. And then it's there's all the arranged marriages going on then, like the partnerships, the dance partnerships. And, a lot of people have said, oh, this is like The Ugly Duckling.
Oh, and I really Fran's characters.
Yeah, with Fran. And I don't like that
I
comparison.
Don't either. Yeah,
because
I really
it
don't.
implies that her value is in her looks and all that. And
exactly.
I've never liked that.
No.
But I've always looked at her as like Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Like she's this, she has talent.
Yeah.
She just doesn't have talent in Scott's world. She has in Barry Fife's world. She has talent in her culture, in her community. She has, she isn't seen to be valuable by people like Fife and Hastings, the Hastings family. But she has value in the eyes of her grandmother and in the eyes of other people. And that is, and I know it sounds silly making that comparison to Clark Kent, but the minute when she comes in with the glasses and she's stumbling around and she's dressing almost like the way she thinks I'm supposed to dress. And it's exactly what Clark Kent does in the Daily Planet or whatever. He will come in and he will be clumsy because he thinks if I'm not clumsy, people will think I'm like some sort of outsider, And so I'm trying, it's almost like he's trying to blend in, because she has loads of advice for Scott. She's like full of pearls of wisdom for Scott.
Yeah, yeah.
And her transition as well into, let's say, I don't want to say like it's framed as she's become more attractive, but I think what's happening is she's just letting her hair down, because both literally and figuratively, but it's like, I just feel more comfortable around you now, so I can be myself.
And I think that's the key, actually. I think the being myself bit is the key, because, and I think the fact that she dresses that way and she looks that way at the beginning, which, is actually about, this is a woman who doesn't exist. She disappears. Like she's not visible. Nobody can see her because they expect her to be, she's a beginner. So she can't, and they can't see the value in her. So she responds accordingly. She reflects that in how she looks and how she behaves and how she talks. But as soon as she gets that little moment where she is brave enough to try those dance steps in front of Scott, and Scott goes, what is that? And then suddenly he sees that potential that she brings him, that kind of superpower, if you like. And that's when she blossoms, when somebody actually then gives her the chance. And then, and that's when the connection of her superpower with his openness and desire for sort of change and freedom comes together. Yeah.
But if this is an ugly duckling story, which is not, but if this is a terribly written ugly duckling story. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because her transition is actually very quick, and she is somebody who is very brave to be able to, like, it's in her character inherently from the beginning. She's not hiding anything really. She might not be visible to the others, but
Yeah.
she's very open. She's like, I want you to dance with me.
Yeah.
I want to dance with you. And Scott's like,
Yeah.
what? But she's it's not something that she's it's not like he's just watched her from afar throughout the movie and then saw her potential later
Yeah,
on. It's like, no,
exactly.
she has come
went
to him directly.
Yeah.
And that is there have been many comparisons to Ugly Duckling in cinema. Lots of rom-coms and so on and so forth, but they're all very much, it's the other person discovers discovers the swan waiting. And this is not that. This is like, she already is that wonderfully talented dancer, and that very wise person who has that other life experience that Scott doesn't have in his little bubble. And she's very, very direct to him. And it's really good. It's like, it's a very strong character that, again, like, Hollywood wasn't doing in the 90s.
No, that's true. Actually,
in that same way.
Yeah.
Like, Fran is a really interesting alternative, I think, to a lot of the way female characters were represented. This is unquestionably a love story as well.
Yeah.
With the Time After Time playing and so on and so forth. And I do feel it's a very equal playing field. And if anything, Scott is the guy who learns, isn't he?
Well, absolutely. And that's the interesting arc of their relationship, isn't it? He goes from being the one who thinks he's the champion, and he's the one that everybody's backing. And what you said to her, what, you're just a beginner. What do you mean you want to dance with me? And he was making her feel like she was ridiculous. And then actually, he has that. He learns the dance steps. He learns the Paso Doble stuff, and opens this whole world of also expressiveness around dance and this whole other non-Pan Pacific world. So yeah, she definitely takes him on a massive journey, creatively, as well as I guess romantically too. Yeah.
The structure of this story is a little bit unusual. Normally, I'm like, okay, that's end of Act 1. Or, okay, definitely reflective moment here before we take the story in a new direction, or, that kind of stuff. I can be quite nerdy when it comes to that. Right. This is a film that moves very quickly and seamlessly in and out of its acts. And it also, like, I have a tendency, like, particularly if I'm watching on my iPad or something, I'll pause occasionally just to see where we are in the time code, just to see how how well it's paced. I'm a firm believer, like, you can set your watch to, when the end of Act 1 in a really well-paced film, you can set your watch to when the film is going to end, and I can't do that with this film. And also, when you think about, in my brain, like, it'd been a few years since I've seen the film, and I just naturally assume that they're coming together, they're kind of training together, their nighttime lessons and all that kind of stuff took more of the film. But actually, it is very quick, like really, really quick. The way that they come together, the way that they're like, yeah, I want to dance with you as well now, Right. And if you actually go and watch and time it, it is very, very quick. Like, we're talking maybe only a few minutes of screen time.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way.
It doesn't feel that way. Kind of when you think back on the overall experience.
Yeah.
But when you watch it, from the moment, there's the Time After Time when they're on the roof with the Coca-Cola commercial. And then there's the time, Time After Time when they're training initially before they get to that. And it's Time After Time while the mother is auditioning new replacements. He's practicing with the new ones.
Yeah.
And Fran watches from afar. But then they're in the evenings, they're dancing together.
Yeah.
And it's that whole thing, them coming together and her becoming, quote unquote, more attractive, the way that it's framed in the film. I don't like saying that because it's like not true,
terrible,
but it's like,
it
really is. But that's, whenever I read, when you read all the analysis, that's how it's framed, is that it's, she's becoming more beautiful because she's more confident with Scott or something, and it's really not. But you can see the physical change in her appearance.
Yes.
The way she, you know, she's taking the glasses off, or she's, you know, wearing other outfits or whatever, and it's that happens during the auditioning period.
Yeah, that's right. It does happen during the audition, because by the time that last dancer comes through, that he gets put beside, she's in with the family saying, "Oh, she's terrible," and she has changed. She has. I feel so uncomfortable with that appearance based. I really do. And I think maybe we need to find, you know, as screenwriters, a better way to frame than that kind of analogy, because it's really annoying. But yeah, I mean, you know, and it is also, I guess, about that, her being more confident about showing the dance that she can do and her capability. So yeah,
you know, she is somebody who is breaking the rules. Like, I think, you know, the way we see Scott becoming more confident in breaking the rules, that's his journey. And I think rather than describing her journey as the ugly duckling turning into the swan, which is how it was taught to me, you know.
Well, and you're right. There's a lot of literature that says that. That's
yeah. And that was from the Irish Film Board's analysis of, you know. So I mean, go figure. But I do think, you know, the answer, the way to describe her journey is she is also breaking the rules, because she is conforming. She's trying so hard to fit into their bubble. And it's so, you know, there was one thing I never noticed before, but Shirley, the mother, she sells makeup on the side.
That's right.
I only just copped that. I thought she was just doing her a favor because, like, oh, you've got bad skin or something like that. And then you realize, so this goes really well with you. By the way, that's $10.99. You know, exactly. and I just caught the price the last time I was watching it, and I thought, oh, she's probably gaslighting.
No doubt.
Fran into being the way she is, so she will buy more makeup.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the person who clearly doesn't know how to use makeup properly anyway. You know, she's so like, she's like a clown.
It's the whole ballroom dancing thing, isn't it? It's all spray tans and big hair and, you know, glittered on your eyebrows. And but also I think you're right about Fran breaking rules, because, you know, in their world, their rules are a beginner would never ask a champion to dance with them. You know, the fact that she went to Scott and said, "I want to dance with you your way," and when they find out, they're like, "What?" You know, this is, you know, so she's also breaking those rules of that world, and that's where they find that moment.
And not to mention her own family's rules as well.
Well,
like,
yes,
you know, you're going to stay here and help us with the event that we're planning. You know, and it's really, I think there's some really wonderful character writing there. And it has been, unfortunately, really mishandled by critics. Even if the critics loved it, the language that's been used throughout is really not, I think, doing Fran as a character justice, because she is, I think, a revelation compared to a lot of the Hollywood alternatives that you would have got.
Yeah.
And the father as well. Doug, he's so brilliant. I don't know. I'm sure he's a very famous actor in Australia. I'm not familiar with his work.
He is. Barry Otto is his name, and he is a very famous actor and very much loved. And so him, and just as a quick side, so him and Barry Fife. Barry Fife's played by an actor called oh my god, I've just had a complete mental
Bill Hunter.
Bill Hunter. And so Bill Hunter and Barry Otto are kind of two iconic Australian actors in their own right. They're just much loved, and I think I'd read somewhere that part of the funding, part of being able to get this film greenlit, was having those two actors on board. So but Barry Otto as Doug is just, I just love him. Anyway, go and tell me what you think.
No, I was just going to say he has such a wonderful kind of C story. Like, if the A story is we got to win the competition, B story is, you know, growing relationship with Fran, the C story is the relationship with his father and the constant, Scott, can I have a moment of your time, please?
Yes.
Not now, Dad. You know, and it's just, and all the evidence is right there in the locked closet. You know, and it's and you know, Barry Fife telling the backstory that's very stylized. Like, I always remember when I first saw it, so good. Thinking, wow, this is corny. Wow, this is like, you know, the way in if you ever watch a cartoon where the characters are watching a cartoon, the animation on their TV gets dumbed down, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like, I always felt, of course you have to do that flashback so stylized because it's already a stylized film. So you've got to take it up to 11.
Yeah, it's true.
And then I watched it again this time and I realized, no, it's Barry Fife telling the story. So of course it's got this kind of villainous quality to it. It's got this kind of mischievous nature to it. And if you look at the way that Doug dances, I use in inverted commas because it's really not dancing, I think, you know, the way he moves and stuff, like he's kind of like dropping Shirley on the ground and all that kind of stuff, and he's like, you know, doing all these very dramatic reactions, and it's all playing up to a single camera as if they're the audience, you know, and the lighting is so extremely harsh and contrasting, and again, he looks like a Batman villain from the 80s. Like he looks like he's lit up like with, you know, Joker makeup and everything. And it is, and I always thought, no wonder it looks like that, because that's from the imagination of Barry Fife. That's not what really happened.
Yeah, that's really true. You're right. And he was made out to be the villain, which I thought was really interesting. But I also think that his story, I mean, his story is so linked to it kind of unlocks the A story, and if you like, you know, about Scott finding the strength or the courage to be himself. But what I really liked about the way they'd set that up is that, you know, you've got this, it starts as this mockumentary, then it shifts into this sort of fictional narrative. You've got these caricatures on the outskirts of, like, sort of almost the secondary characters are like really, you know, caricatured. But those core characters of Scott and Fran are not caricatures. They're really, you know, and neither is the dad. Doug is also, and I thought that's really interesting that actually that one character, that quiet character that sort of is subtle, is all subtly through, you know, can I have a word, Scott? Can I have a word, Scott? All through the film, and we don't get it till right at the end. And I thought that was really lovely, just that creating those characters in such different lights, which I didn't notice early on, but you know, looking back at it, it's
but it is a wonderful screenwriting lesson, because, you know, one of the biggest mistakes I see screenwriters making is they will write an A story, they will write a B story, and they'll write a C story, and the three of them will be disconnected. It'll be, you know, Jack going off on his revenge quest. It'll be Jack's brother, you know, coming out of prison and getting in the way, and it'll be, you know, Jack's mother, you know, trying to fend off the bank before they repossess the house or something like that. And it's just I don't know what movie I'm writing here, but it's just like you've got this it's interesting drama, and it's filling up the screen time, and they could be great characters and so on, but if they're not all informing Jack's journey as a human being, then what's the point? It's just curiosity. Then it's just you didn't have enough screen time for your main character. And I see that so often in films and so often in screenplays. And I love that this, like you said, every single thing informs Scott. It's Fran is teaching him the skills to break free, but it's Scott's father telling him it's okay to break free.
Yeah, because Scott's father was the same, and that's, you know, he had the, and Scott never knew, and that's a really lovely. And I just love the way. I mean, I know, you know, from a screenwriting point of view, you're going to drip it through, and you're going to, you know, foreshadow, and you're going to, you know, and you're not going to reveal it till later, and all that, and that makes perfect sense. But I just really love the way it was handled, because it was was so deftly dropped in, and you did wonder until kind of 3/4 of the way through about, well, why does he keep bugging him? What does he want to talk about? And it kind of obviously unfolds. But yeah, the fact that he is the one in that beautifully, quite naturalistic way, in a way, that unlocks that secret to him finding that bravery, I guess. It's
and again, Shirley's role is to bury that reveal, because Shirley demeans him so much, emasculates him so much, you know, oh, shut up, you fool, you know, and all that kind of stuff, you know, and even Scott says, why do you treat him like that, you know, and it's, she has him on such a leash that you don't expect he's capable of anything more than just than any, you know. And when he comes out with that, with his story, then and it's brilliant acting, it's powerhouse acting, it's genuine performance, you know, like grounded in reality as opposed to the red curtain, approach. He's more aligned with Scott and Fran than he is with anybody else. He's a real human being in this world.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's the clap. It's the clap for me.
Oh, I know.
When he does the clap.
I know. It's
it
so good.
Gets me every time. It's just that incredible moment. And it's again, like the paso doble and everything. It's just that he knew exactly how to. That is the most choreographed clap.
Definitely.
It just has that incredible sound, that wonderful sound to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that character has been crushed by conformity. I think he's come up against the Barry Fife world and lost. And so it's crushed him as a human, as a man, certainly as a husband. And so, their relationship is almost non-existent. He's just this, vilified character. And so it's terrific to see him. I guess Scott, in a way, gives him the opportunity to also be free himself of, and go back to what he was, which is actually just like Scott. They're obviously very similar.
And that's how the film ends.
Yeah.
Love is in the air, and everybody just dancing out until the credits. Freeze frame on Scott, isn't it? And Fran.
Yes, exactly. Hey, I did love the, I don't know if you had a thought about it, I did love the two little characters, the little brother and sister. Yeah, the kids.
Yeah.
I thought they were such a lovely addition through the film, because they're kind of like the voice of the audience. Like there are these moments where strange things happen and one of the kids goes, "Oh, well, that was unexpected." And it's kind of like, it's like us. And I just loved it as a really soft technique all the way through. They just pop up and add these little moments where we go, "Oh, yeah, okay."
And they get what Scott is doing.
Yeah.
Like they are smiling when everyone else is shocked. They're cheering him on when everybody else is rolling their eyes. And I do feel that if this is a story about breaking free from the past, the youngest kids, the future of that family, are the ones who are on his side.
That's
I
true.
do think there's a beautiful kind of parallel there. Like there's the old people in this family, so to speak, who are, they like stuck in their ways. They'll never change their spots. And then you've got the younger members of the family who are just completely up for change.
Yeah.
And that they'll be teaching the paso doble with Fran years from now when Shirley's retired.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also the fact that the whole idea of change is undermines the existence. Like Barry Fife, if the whole idea of any kind of change is like pulling the rug out from underneath him and his whole world. And so the fact that they try to protect it so much, but actually, hopefully, realize at the end of the film that actually, if they let change happen, that actually there's your future generation of dancers, and it it gives some viability to their world longer term. So, and we can see that in our society every day, can't we?
I know. I love how at the end of the day, it all boils down to they want to sell more training videos. That's what all of this is about. Is we can't sell our VHS cassettes if the rules change. Like as if they have such limited imagination. Like you didn't think you could just make Paso Doble videos instead, like it's like maybe more diverse dancing might offer more diverse, more a need for more teachers, a more need for more schools. No, it couldn't possibly be. They're so restricted.
And maybe get more people to come and grow your audience, and maybe make your classes more full or whatever. But right.
More ticket sales, all that.
Exactly.
No, that couldn't. It's so brilliantly constructed. I think
it is.
Anyway.
Most definitely. Final thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Great. Look, one of my forever favorites for so many reasons. Great screenwriting, great filmmaking. And obviously just a little bit of home for me, which is I'm always going to love it for that reason. And I just, I love Luhrmann. I might be critical of some things, but I love what he does. I love what he creates for us as cinema goers. How about you?
It's fun. I think it's, it's just wonderful, fun viewing, and there's just not an ounce of harm in this film.
True.
This is one of those films where to me, there are one or two moments where you're like, there's a little bit of Harvey Weinstein going on there in that man's
Oh
expression
my
right there.
God.
Like it's a bit
Barry
like,
Fife. Yeah,
yeah,
Barry Fife has his
there's one or two
moments.
moments where he's casting a glance at one or two women where you're like, okay, go away now. Get him away from here, but it's, I think there's definitely one or two parallels to kind of the way the industry is, the way the entertainment industry is. And, but I don't think the overall tone of the film just completely overrides that, I think. And you can,
definitely.
you'd have to be analyzing it like us, I think, to really pick up on that kind of stuff. It's
definitely.
just it's I think it's as close to the Disney animation style of storytelling that you will get in live action. I think it's
that's a really good point.
It's very it's one that it's a very, I don't know, free spirited, safe kind of a family friendly approach to live action competitive dancing, I guess. I don't know how to best to describe it, but you've got characters who feel like they're right out of a Disney animation from the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the caricatures presented in this, like Shirley and so on, are inspired some Disney animations later on in that mid 90s period. I refuse to believe that this film didn't have some influence on filmmakers at Disney.
Oh, I'm sure it did. And I think it did too. And what I do love about it is its self-effacing sense of humor. I just think the humor that it brings it's so unique. It's so it's just such its own thing and so lovely. And I think it's just joy for me. It's just a joyous film. And yeah, it has its moments in terms of some questionable things, but basically it's just joy in a film. And I guess I'd hope that people who might not have seen it wouldn't be put off by the strictly ballroom title. I think a lot of people go, oh, I'm not really into ballroom dancing. It's like, just, give it a go. I said this to Marcus the other day.
It's about as related to ballroom dancing as the Social Network is to coding. I mean, it's not. Yes. That's not what this film is. Not at all. Not at all. Anyway, thank you very much, Fiona, and thanks everyone.
It's a pleasure.
We'll be back with another Luhrmann retrospective next week. Maybe Great Gatsby.
Oh yeah, let's get it out of my system. I've got a couple of things to talk about there. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's stick around for that. Until then, hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. And don't forget to buy us a coffee as well. It all helps. Yeah. And thanks very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.